Okay, so again, welcome to TntConnect Tips and Tricks. We will be sending out the link to the recording later today in your email, along with an FAQ that has just some answers to questions that get asked on a regular basis, and probably links to the previous webinars as well, if those are something that you would like access to. Today is more of an advanced webinar, and so we're just going to be going over some of the features that some people enjoy using, some people don't. So these aren't necessary features, but may enhance your experience with TntConnect. So I'm not going to give you a list of all the different things we're going to cover before we get started, just because I think there are like 9 or 10, and I don't remember them off the top of my head. So I'm going to minimize the screen and go over to TNT so we can get started. The first thing that I want to start with is, during the first session, I told you when you first start your account or create your account, hold on, since I'm not sharing. Okay, you should see TNT now. If you don't see TNT, please let Michelle know in the chat box so that I can try to fix it. So during the first webinar, I mentioned once you create your account, you're going to have a contact record that is yours. So it's going to have your name, your information. Sorry, my screen is freaking out a little bit. Your own personal information. And I encourage you originally not to delete that. And this is the reason why. So you might occasionally have some tasks or some history that you want to keep record of, but that don't necessarily line up with a specific contact. So for example, if you do a church service, or you speak at a church, or you speak at a home group, or something like that, we're actually interacting with several partners and not just one, is you might go ahead and create a task here under your own contact, or a history item here under your own contact, so it's still part of your database, even though it doesn't fall under one person, if that makes sense. So any to-do items that you have that, maybe you want to create a to-do item to get on SALT 1-to-1 and order ITP brochures. Well, here's a place that you can do that if you want to keep it in your TNT history. Okay, so it's probably more for people who are really active in their PD. So maybe you're on furlough, maybe you're in your initial PD stage, and so this could be helpful. If this is your sort of primary to-do list, this would be helpful. The next thing is lookups. And so I've referred to this several times in the last couple of webinars, but I want to go over it more thoroughly now. Lookups is going to refer to your contacts, okay? And so remember, over and over, I've tried to tell you, whoever appears in this portion of your screen, okay, if you see my mouse kind of going up and down, whoever appears right here is your current group. And so you see right here, it says current group. When you first open up TNT, it's probably going to have everybody listed here, okay? And so any group action that you do, if it says current group, so if you do a mass field change, if you do a mail merge, if you do anything like that, okay, anytime that it's referring to group, if you're over in your tasks and you say current group, so you want to see all the tasks for your current group, you do it in history. Anytime you say current group, it's always referring to these folks right here. One other reminder that I want to give, and I might say this a couple of times as we're going through the webinar today, is when you go to clear a filter, okay, so if I look up my financial partners, and I'll show you what I just did in a little bit, but if I look up all my financial partners and I think, okay, now I want to see all of my contacts again, a lot of times, and I still do it to this day, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, and I still do it, okay? So you're going to do this, is I always think that I need to click this X to clear my filter, and of course it doesn't clear the filter, it makes my contacts go away. Okay, remember to fix this, you can either hit F3 on your keyboard, or you can use this icon at the very top. So just to the left or just to the right of the bullhorn, you can click this and it'll bring it back. But it didn't clear the filter. So I still can't see all of my contacts. I'm still only seeing my financial partners. So to clear the filter, you actually need to hit this clear filter icon, and then you'll be able to see everybody. Okay, I guarantee you're going to do this at least once. So just want to help you because I panicked the first time I did it. Now lookups refers to this specific menu right here. And what we're going to be doing, you'll see there's lots and lots of options in this menu. And this is going to give us ways to look up specific groups of people within your contact record. So I only have 19, and this probably wouldn't be that helpful to me. But most people probably have 400, 1,000 contacts. You have a lot of contacts in here. You want to narrow it down quickly instead of having to scroll up and down looking for specific people. Okay, so that's what this function is going to help you do. The first one I'm going to start from the bottom. This bottom one here says refer, and what that is, that's what that's talking about is on the TNT tab. Remember I talked about referred by? Okay, so if you have advocates who have been referring people to you, you might have been using this field. And so maybe I want to look up all the people that have been referred to me by a specific advocate. And that's when I would use this refer. So this is the window for looking up contacts. I'm going to talk about these 4 options a little bit later. Okay, so for right now, we're not going to go into that. But here you'll see referred by. And then if I drop down the menu here, you'll see the 3 different advocates that I have. Okay, so this is going to look up all of the contacts that the Cheshire Cat has referred to me. So if I click OK, you'll see he's referred these, and you'll see no matter what contact I click on, okay, they've all been referred by the Cheshire Cat. So that's how you do that one. The next one is church, and so that's referring to this field right here. So if you've been keeping track of this and giving everybody church names, okay, you'll be able to look up who's in what church. Okay, so I have 4 people in the First Church of Dallas. Okay, so if I click on any of these contacts, it should, yeah. Okay, so clear the filter again, look up. Next is user status. User status is referring to this tab here in this field. Again, I've not taught people what to do with this field. I've never used it myself. I'm not sure what the recommended values are for this. But if you have something in you can choose whatever you want. So if you've done something with this, that's how you can use that field to look up your partners. Basically, any field in TNT that you put data into, you're going to be able to use it to do a lookup. Okay, so the next one is TNT phase. TNT phase is referring, again, to this tab right here in this menu. So if you want to look up your financial partners, if you want to look up your prayer partners, if you want to look up who you need to make a phone call for, this is one of the ways you can do it. So if I go look up TNT phase, I'm going to change this to financial partner financial, click OK, and now I'm just looking at my financial partners. And so you see this over and over again, right? So the next one is city and state. And so if I look up by state, and I say, so this is mailing state, and I go to Missouri and say OK. Now I'm seeing all my contacts that are in Missouri. Okay, so that might be helpful to get some, oops, and see, I just tried to clear my filter the wrong way. Right. So the city is going to go the same way. First name, I've seen people find this helpful when they've collected a lot of names from a church, or they've had a home group with maybe people who are not in their primary network, and they've put them into their database. They remember what their first name was, but now they can't remember their last name. And so, if your partner was Peter Parker, for example, but you have, 600 contacts, and now you have to scroll through and look for Peter. Instead of doing that, you can use this first name filter and just pick Peter. Okay, so scroll down, there's Peter. Okay, and now it brought up the only 2 contacts that have Peter. So that's kind of more of if you've lost a contact and can't remember their last name. Same thing with the last name one. Last name is a little bit different because these are in alphabetical order, so you could easily scroll down. But I've seen people have told me that they've used that if they're looking up a family of contacts. They want to see all the family records at the same time. They'd use the last name one. File as is the name again. So I've not used this one, but it's just looking at partners by their names again. I'm going to jump up to everyone. Everyone is another way to clear the filter. So if you have a filter on, this is another way to get all of your contacts back. This contact means it's going to clear everybody from the group except the one contact that you happen to be looking at. I'm not sure what the benefit of doing that is, but you can. Me is going to bring up your personal contact. Okay. So again, I think it's helpful if you probably have tons and tons of contacts and you want to see your own. It's just a fast way to do it. by giving, by group. So these are all different fields that you can use. Let me jump back into last name for a second. And so the next thing that I wanted to talk about are these 4 categories right here, where it says replace the current group, look up within the current group, add to the current group, take away from the current group. Replace the current group is what we have been doing. So if you'll notice, this window has been the exact same every single time. Every time I've made a choice from the lookup menu, we've ended up with this same window. So you can actually change what you're looking for here as well. But these names, these field names aren't always super obvious. And so if it's not one of the ones that are on this menu, it might take you a little bit to figure out which one you're looking for. But just so you know, this is the same for all of them. And so replace the current group, again, that's what we have been doing. So right now, if I say the home street address is 2136 Pride Rock, okay. Right now, if I say okay, it's going to replace my current list with the list of people I'm asking for. Okay, so if I said I want everybody in Texas and left it at replace the current group and said okay, this list is going to be replaced with everybody who's in Texas. Okay. The next one is look up within current group. And so what this is helpful for is if I've brought up everybody who's in Texas, and now I only want to know who my financial partners are in Texas, then I would use this. So the way I would start is I would start by looking up, let me just do it like this. I would start by looking up all my Texas people. And I'm going to say okay. And now I only want the financial partners that are in this group. So only my Texas financial partners. So I would do another lookup and say TNT phase. And then I would move this to look up within the current group and say partner financial. Okay. Oops. So now if I say okay, it's only going to show me 3 people because these are the only 3 people that are both in Texas and a financial partner. Okay. The next one is add to the current group. So this is if I want to see all of the people that are in 2 different states. I want all of my partners who are in Texas and all of the people that I have that are in Missouri. So first I would do a lookup. I would do this replace the current group and find all the Texas people. Do a second lookup, add to current group, look for my Missouri contacts, and now I would have everybody from 2 states. Okay, so you can do that with maybe you want your advisory prayer team and your wider prayer team. And so you would want to put those 2 groups together. This is a way that you could do that. The final option is take away from the current group. So I don't know, maybe you're going on a PD trip and you want to find all the people in your database who are in Texas but are not currently financial partners. Okay, so first you would look up all the people in Texas, then you would do another lookup with this option, and you would say, I would put in financial partners, and it would take away all the financial partners from my database. Okay, so those are just 4 different ways that you can do. You can control how TNT is doing the lookup. Make sure I didn't miss anything there. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about, so that's all with lookups. If you have any questions about lookups, please go ahead and let us know. The next thing I'm going to talk about is a mass email. So typically you're probably only getting, yeah.
Before we move on, we've got a question.
Sure.
Is there a way to access all this awesome TNT database information while away from our computer, like from a mobile device using Dropbox?
You can put it into Dropbox. TNT doesn't currently have a mobile app. I think that's something that they want to look into in the future. There is another program called MPDX that has a mobile app, and so nobody in Wycliffe right now is teaching MPDX or is able to give you help or support with that. But if you feel confident enough to kind of go explore it on your own, you can pretty easily import your TntConnect information into MPDX and have it that way. I have some issues with MPDX. I'm not going to go into all of this right now. But if you need your contacts to be on your phone, that's an easy way to do it, is by moving your data over to that program. Otherwise, you would need to do a printout probably if you needed the information to be with you. Okay.
And Jen, I just linked the article that we were talking about this morning about the Dropboxes and TNT, so they can read that as well.
Yeah, there's two different, I don't want to say two different. There's lots of ways to store your data online. Dropbox is the official TntConnect way to do it. Dropbox is the way that you're going to keep from getting conflicting changes. So for example, if a husband and wife were both had TNT open at the same time and were both making changes, TNT and Dropbox work together to make sure that you don't have any conflicts. So if two people made a change at a similar time, instead of just picking one and auto-changing it, it's going to let you know that a conflict happened and give you the opportunity to choose which one was right. If you put it in, this is the article that Michelle just sent you. If you put it in some place like Google Drive is not set up to work specifically with TNT. And so now if you make changes, two different people are making changes and there's a conflict in data, Google Drive just picks whatever one happened last. Okay, so you're a little bit more likely, if you're not being careful, to get a change that maybe you didn't intend or want to have. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. And that's a good article. It's a pretty short article. If you go ahead and read through it, I've heard it's pretty helpful. For mass email changes, this is going to be mostly important if you're not using a program like MailChimp or Thunderbird. And so you want to batch your emails together and send out your newsletter or prayer updates to a large group of people, and you don't want to have to go contact by contact to get their email address. The way that you can do that is by going to group actions here at the very, very top. And again, it's going to refer to whoever's here. So if you want to look up all your financial partners, because that's the only people that you want to email, you would do that first and then go to the group actions. Okay, so remember, it's always who is ever in this current group. So if I go to group actions and say, create mass email, okay, it's now pulled all the email addresses from this list. Okay, and you'll see that they recommend doing a blind copy. We also recommend doing that. So if you're just using Gmail or Yahoo or some other free email client, you want to make sure to put them in the blind copy because a lot of people are very sensitive about having their information shared with others. If you just put this in the to field or the CC field, everybody's going to be able to see everybody else's email. So we do want to use the BCC in case you weren't aware of that. But you can just hit copy, and then you can go over to your email client and create a new email and just copy and paste it in. Okay, so now all those email addresses are there. You can also, if you have more than 20, so if you're using something like Gmail or Yahoo or I don't know, the hundreds of other emails that are out there, or even your Wycliffe email, okay? If you're just using an email client like that, I recommend that you export your email list to Excel first. And the reason for that is that you really should only be sending 19 or 20 emails maximum at a time, because if you try to send more, you're going to end up in the person's spam filter. Okay, so if you're doing it this way, the Excel sheet's nice because you'll be able to just easily see your groups of 20. Okay, so then you can just highlight, copy, and paste it over there. So that's a good feature if this is what you're doing to send a mass email. If I click this new email Outlook, this is going to look at whatever your default email address is for your entire computer. Okay, so for example, in Windows 10, if I go to this menu here and go to my settings, apps, default apps, this is where I can see this is the email client that if I click a button somewhere, it's going to open it up in Outlook. If I wanted to change this to Gmail, to Yahoo Mail, this is where I could change that. If that's something that you need to change, it's an easy thing to Google. So if you Google change default email on this kind of operating system, Mac, Windows 8, Windows 10, there's always really easy step-by-step instructions out there. If you need help, I can try to help you, but that's what I'm going to do, is just Google it. Okay. So that's what's going to happen. When I click this, it's going to automatically open up an email. Okay, and I still have to paste it in there. Okay, so that's how that works. That's all there is to mass emails. The next one is to mass change a field. So what that means is I want to change I want to change something for all of my records in a group. So, for example, one of the things that I've seen some people do that they've wanted to turn around and change is they've started their database by typing out the name of the state, and now they want to use TNT to create labels or envelopes, but now that's awkward because they've typed out the name instead of giving TX, right, instead of giving the abbreviation. And so now they have to go through their database and find everybody who's in Texas, right? So they could do the lookup by state. I'm going to look up state, Texas. Okay. So now I have everybody, but I still have to go one by one and change this over to TX. So if you have a lot of people, maybe you have 50 or 60 people that you need to make this change for, it'd be really, really frustrating if you had to go to every single contact to make that change. So instead
we've got a question real quick.
Sure.
Can you synchronize emails with MailChimp?
What is it?
Can you synchronize emails with MailChimp?
Yeah. Yeah, TNT, I think I go over this in the first or second webinar. If you go to Tools and Sync with MailChimp, it'll sync right here. And I go over step by step in one of those 2 webinars. I don't remember off the top of my head which. I suspect the first one. But if you do this sync process with MailChimp, when you send, you can sync your contacts. So you can automatically move your contacts over into MailChimp, or you can automatically move your contacts from MailChimp back to TNT. And then when you send an email from MailChimp, it'll automatically log your history items into TNT. So that is a nice feature of TNT, is it does sync up with MailChimp. I highly recommend you doing that if you're using both. So going back to mass change of field, again, I only have 8 contacts, so this might not be too big of a deal. But again, most people have a lot more. And so I want to change all these contacts at once from Texas to the abbreviation TX. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to Group Actions again, and I'm going to say mass change of field. Anytime you do mass change of field, TNT automatically creates a backup. So if you do this mass change of field and you realize, I wish I hadn't done that, there's not an undo button, but a backup was created so that you can restore from your previous backup, from your previous version. Okay? So mass change of field. First you want to select your fields. So this is state. I got rid of mailings. Home state. So home state province. Change field. Now remember, I had to look up these people first, okay? If I hadn't looked up all the people who were in Texas first, it would change all of my contacts to this. Okay, so probably you don't want to do that, so be careful. A mass change field is going to occur to whoever is in your current group. It's really, 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 really important. And one of the good reasons that it makes backups for you, okay? Because it's an easy mistake to make. So I want to change this to just TX. Say, okay. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, and now you'll see it's changed to Texas. So if I go to any of these contacts, it's all changed to TX now. Okay, so that's mass change of field. If you realize that you made a mistake, you would go to File, Restore. Okay, so you'll see here it says this is the version before group field change. So it automatically created it, I didn't have to do it. But if I restore from there, it would flip everybody back to Texas. Okay. So it's a fancy undo, I guess. You can also actually do multiple changes of history items. We went over history last week, and so that was in TNT Intermediate. If you haven't seen that webinar, but if I wanted to change some of my history items, maybe I have a bunch of thank you cards in here, okay, and I said that they were all cloud thank you cards, but actually I remembered later that they actually all had trees on them, okay. And so I don't want to change them one by one. So if I click on the first one and then hold down the controller command key and click the other ones, okay, I've got all the ones highlighted that I need to change. And then I right click, edit. Okay, I'm just going to change this over to trees. Okay, and now they're all changed. Okay. So that's 2 ways to change a group of data at once instead of one at a time. The next is also a history thing that I wanted to show you that I didn't cover last week. And so say I'm logging a history, so say I made a phone call to George and Jane Jetson, and no, that's not what I want to do, sorry. A gift. So I use this mostly for present. So if you get a gift, you're logging a gift history item. It could be that you received a gift. It could also be that you gave a partner a gift. If you want to make that distinction, you can use the received, change it to received. So this would be I received a gift instead of I gave a gift. Now the other ones are only just done and attempted. Okay, so it's a really minor detail, and I think most people probably would just put it in the description. But if it is a distinction that you want to make, that is a way that you can do that. Okay, so the next thing, I think I ended up actually talking about this in one of the previous webinars, but it's important, so let me hit it again here. And that's checking for updates of your database. I would say 95% of the time, you're going to see in red letters down here that says a new update is available for your database. And so if you click on that, it'll automatically start you in the update process. If it was a big change, so sometimes, like today, I actually did an update to my database and it fixed my Google Maps. So my Google Maps are broken. I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit. But I didn't have to restart my computer for it to work. That's not always the case. There's sometimes that an update's occurring and it requests you to restart your computer. For me, that's a big deal because I usually have a bunch of stuff open on my computer, and it's frustrating for me when it restarts. To make sure you're in a good place. If you don't restart your computer right then, you have to restart the entire update process. It doesn't like pause it or anything. You have to restart it. There's kind of a handy tip. The other way that you can check for updates, if you feel like it hasn't updated in a while and you're just curious, if you go to help and then check for updates, it'll also check and make sure that you're running the latest version. Okay, so it's just a little handy tip. The next thing, and I've referred to this a little bit off and on throughout the series, but I want to give more details about ways to get help in TNT. So the first one I mentioned in the first session is the F1 key. And so again, if I go to any place in TNT, so for example, if I go to Lookups, so I'm at the Lookup screen, and I want more information about this screen, help. If I click the F1 key and connect it to the internet, it's going to automatically open up a browser that is the TNT's help for lookups, right? So here's what is a lookup. So there's all kinds of information now about lookups. And that happens no matter where you're at in TNT. So if I go to my address tab and I want help with this, I can again hit F1, and now they're going to bring up information about the address tab. Okay, and they give you detailed information about how to use everything. So TNT is really handy and nice in that way. They also have help videos. So they have lots of things on this screen. Like you see on this left-hand side, these are all the different topics they have for helps. And you can also go over to their FAQs. Okay, this is more of a forum thing. So that's one way that you can do help. The second way is this smiley face community button in the bottom left-hand corner. If you click on that, it's gonna want you to be signed in. So it's gonna ask you to sign in with your Google account. And the reason that they do that is if you leave a comment or a question on the forum, they wanna be able to email you and let you know that you've received a reply. So that's why they're asking you to sign in. If you go over to the forums here and you have a question, you could type it, you can write a new post and put your question in, and you typically get a response between 1 and 3 days. And you might get a response from the developer himself or somebody who's on his team, but they always give excellent help, excellent instructions, and that kind of thing. So this is a really good place to get help. You can also leave suggestions. So if you use TNT a lot and you wish it did something that it doesn't, if you give a good detailed explanation of what you're looking for, Troy, who developed TNT, can let you know if that's something that he's able to add, or maybe he already has it in the works, or something like that. So that's one way that you can have that conversation with the developer.
Jen, we have a comment here. Your screen isn't changing very quickly, so they're not seeing the things that you're saying when you're clicking because you're talking faster than your computer's keeping up.
That's weird. All right, I apologize for that. I didn't know that that could be a thing. I'll try to slow down in my clicking a little bit. And so then the other way to get help is if you want to email me directly. I've been a little bit slow about getting back to people lately. So if you email me, it'll probably be closer to 1 or 2 weeks before you hear back. Not always. Sometimes I'm able to turn it around really fast. But things have been crazier than usual. But I'm happy to set up a one-on-one appointment with you if you need to go through it with you. So just let me know if you have specific questions, and I'll either try to help you, or if I'm really busy, I'll encourage you to go to the forum that I just showed you here in the community, where they answer a lot of questions as well. The next thing that we're going to talk about is mail merge. So I'm going to clear this filter. So mail merge is if you want to create envelopes or labels. And so obviously the first thing that you want to do before you create envelopes or labels is to select the group of people that you want to make envelopes or labels for. So one of the lookups that I actually forgot to show you is this little icon right here that's the orange bullhorn. If you click on its newsletter tools, okay? So if I click on this, there are 3 tabs: paper, email, and problems. Paper has a button that I can click on receives paper newsletter, and it'll pull up all my contacts that are marked as wanting to receive my paper newsletter. Okay, so that's here in this TNT tab. So right here it says paper with email backup. This is somebody who wants to receive their newsletter by paper. Okay, so that's one of the people that it would pull up. If I want to pull up all the people who would receive my newsletter by email, you would go to the email tab. And then the problems tab has 2 options: newsletter not possible and newsletter preference not possible. That's referring to the people who have these red X's or the red @ sign. Okay, so newsletter not possible means they want to receive my newsletter, but the methods that they've chosen aren't going to work. There's something wrong with their address, there's something wrong with their email. And then the preference not possible is like this person here, so that they want to receive a paper newsletter, but that's X'd out, but they're able to receive a backup email. So these are just 2 ways to pull up those kinds of partners. I'm going to pull up my receives paper newsletter, because these are the folks who are going to have addresses typically in my database. So these are the people that I want to receive. I want to receive my paper newsletter, and so I want to create newsletter labels or envelopes for them. The first one that we're going to do is labels. So I'm going to go again to group actions and say create mail merge. Okay. From here, you don't really need to do anything except for change the document type. So we're not doing form letters. We're going to do labels or envelopes. So we're going to do labels first. Then once you've made that selection, you can click OK. So this screen, no matter whether or not you've done it in the past, every time you do this, you want to click Setup. If you don't click Setup, it's not going to prepare the Word document for your merge. Okay, so this is a necessary step, no matter how many times you've done it. So you can click Setup. And probably what you're going to need to change is the label vendor and the product number. You're going to be able to find your label vendor and your product number on the packaging that came with your labels. So if it came in a, yeah.
We've got a question if you're sharing Excel. And I just have a personal comment. I'm not seeing your mouse move, but I'm seeing a few things move on the screen.
That's right. I wonder what's going on. Let me stop share and see if I can restart the share. Not had this specific problem before. That's interesting. Is this any better?
Yes, we have mouse movement now. Great.
Okay. I don't know why. Was there a question as well, or?
Well, they were just wondering if you were sharing Excel, because I have a feeling they were probably seeing the same thing I was. We were not seeing this screen.
Okay, so let me start over. Okay, you see my TNT now?
Can you also, we had a request because of that freeze, could you show how you got to mail merge again as well?
Yeah, I'm started. Can you see my TNT now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know if that happens again, because this won't make any sense if you can't see what I'm doing. Okay, So I've pulled up my group of partners who want to receive paper newsletters, right? And then I went to group actions and went down to create mail merge. Okay. And so this is where I said you want to make sure to select your document type. So right now it says form letters. I'm going to change it over to labels. And click OK. Now it's starting Word. So this is where I said you want to make sure to do this setup, no matter how many times you've done it. Okay, so click this setup. And this is where you choose your label vendor and your product number. Again, these two are going to be on the packaging. So if you bought labels to print on, it'll tell you what your label vendor and your number is. The number is really important. Okay, so if I pick another number, it's going to drastically change the size. So it might change it to a size or a letter size. So it might be a full-size piece of paper, or it might be a square, or it might be a really big rectangle, or something like that. So the product number is pretty important. So you'll see it even says type address label. There are several in here that are address labels, but not all of them. So make sure you have the right information here and click OK. And then you don't need to change any of these other options, and you click Close. Okay. So it looks like nothing's happened, and that's okay. The next thing that we want to do is we want to do an Insert Merge field. And so when I click on that, I get a drop-down menu, and I want the mailing address block. Okay? So click Mailing Address Block, and then it's really, really important to click Update Labels. I know that sounds weird, but when I click it, you'll see that it created a rule, this next record rule, and then it gave the mailing address block for each subsequent label. Okay, so now to see the results, you can click Preview Results, and it'll show you the labels that are ready to print. Okay. Once you've done that, you can click Finish and Merge, and you can either edit the individual documents or you can print them. If you get to this screen and find that you're editing information, it probably means you also need to go back to TNT and edit it. Okay, otherwise, every time you make labels, you're going to have to come here and edit. That's all there is to making labels. The other mail merge that we're going to do is for envelopes. And so that we want to go to Group Actions again, back to Create Mail Merge. And then this time for the document type, instead of labels, we want envelopes. Okay. And click OK. And we're going to have the same options we had previously for labels. Now my computer's going really slow. There we go. So let me know if you're not seeing what I'm talking about. Okay. Again, we want to go to Setup. There's going to be some different options on the Setup screen that weren't there for labels. So the first is the size. Again, this is all information that you're going to be able to find on the packaging that you bought it in. So if it came in a box, all this is going to be in the box. So you want to get the right size. For font, we encourage you to use the branded fonts. So for Donna or Georgia, if you change this, make sure you change both. Right? Otherwise, one part of your envelope will have one kind of font, and the other will have a different kind of font, and that's going to look weird. Okay, so make sure to change them both to the same thing. And then you also want to go over to printing options, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can insert the envelope into your printer. And you can also do it face up, face down. Okay, so you're going to have to kind of mess with this a little bit. What I recommend doing is only putting in one envelope at first to make sure it prints correctly before you use all of your envelopes. Yeah, so just play with that a little bit and make sure that everything is working correctly before you try to print all of them. Then we can click OK and then Close. And this looks blank. So the first thing that you want to do is you actually want to type in your own information. Okay, so I'm just gonna. Okay, so put in your own personal address information, and then you want to click in the middle, the bottom middle of the white screen. Right? When you do, you'll see that this dotted rectangle showed up. Make sure your blinking cursor is inside that rectangle. If it's on the top of the rectangle, which I've done before, it puts your address around the rectangle instead of in the middle. If that happens, just hit Control-Z or undo, and then just put your cursor inside the middle. Okay. once your cursor is inside of the rectangle, you can do the same thing that we did for labels. Insert merge field, mailing address block, and then this time we just do preview results. Okay, so preview results. Now this frustrated me the first time I did it, because I was like, why is there only one envelope? I just made like 6. And so for some reason, I don't know why, some reason for envelopes to see the other ones, you need to use this arrow at the top of the screen, and this will let you go through the different ones. Okay, so this is the way that you'd preview them. You can also, if you do finish mail and merge, and you say edit individual documents, I see, okay, now I can actually scroll down and see all of them. So if you want to be able to scroll, that's the way that you can do that. Otherwise, you just say print documents, and you would print your envelopes for you. That's all there is to it.
So someone missed where the arrow was, and I think they were referring to paging through the different envelopes.
Yeah, at the very top of the screen. So in this mailing ribbon, this is where we went to the insert merge field, and I clicked mailing address block. To the right of that is the arrow. So there's a number right here at the very top that says 1, 2. Okay, so there's arrows to the left and right of that, and this will let you go through. If you go click on those will go back and forth between the records. Okay. The last thing, well, there's 2 more things. The first one is, let me go back to TNT. Let me know if you don't see TNT. Okay, I'm back in TNT. The next thing that we want to look at is creating groups. Let me clear my filter real quick. So we've shown a couple of different ways that you can do that, right? So I've talked about partner types, that you can use this. But another way to create groups, well, 2 more ways to create groups. The first is you can create favorites based on your lookups. So if you regularly look up everybody who's in, I don't know, Dallas, right? And so you find yourself doing this lookup over and over and over again, and you want to be able to do it faster. The way that you can do that is by going back to lookup, then so first you have to do the lookup. So I've now pulled up everybody's in Dallas. Then I go to lookup, go to favorites, right? And then just say add current lookup to favorites. And now you give it a name. Okay, so this was my Dallas partners. And so when I click OK, now if I go to look up favorites, Dallas partners, it pulls them up. Okay, so then the nice thing about creating groups that way, it's more of a filter, right? But the nice thing about doing it that way is when you add in new partners to your database, you don't have to manually add them to the group. As long as whoever you add it to your database fits the criteria, so in this case, the criteria of Dallas, any contact from now on that I add to my database that lives in Dallas will automatically show up when I do that lookup. Okay, so that's a nice thing about doing it this way. The other groups that you can add is through this groups button to the far left. Okay, with this, TNT will let you literally create an infinite amount of groups. Okay, so you can have categories of groups, groups within groups, groups within groups within groups. Be careful don't get carried away with this, okay? Make sure that any groups that you create are actually going to help you in your PD, and it's not just a way to spend your time. Okay, so just be careful. There are those of us who really like detailed things, but so it's easy to get caught up in this. But the way to create a new group is just with this new group button. Okay, so if I create a new group, and then just say okay, it created a new group, right? So this is the new group that I just made. If I want to create a new category, okay, so I just deleted the group by right-clicking on it and choosing delete. If I want to create a category, and by category I mean, so here I have family members as a category because it has this little arrow next to it. But if I click on that, now I can see Mickey's family, Minnie's family, Pluto's family, and then under Mickey's family I put pets. Okay, I'm just trying to show you that you can instantly create lists within inside of lists. You can nest. But if I want to create one of these categories, the way that you do it is by going to, again, to new group, but you actually create, you see this is the parent group. So this is how you would put this group inside of a different one. So if I said elephants, Okay, and then so the parent group was family members, Mickey's family, family pets. Okay, now elephants is inside my pets group. Okay, to create a category, I think to make a category, you just make a new group. So like if I say new category, and say okay, it looks like it's just a group, but now I can say new group, and say group A, and I want new category to be my parent. Okay, now new category has the group A inside of it. Does that make sense? Let me know if you have any questions about that. Okay, so that's how you create these different levels, basically. Now to add people into the groups, okay, let's start with just prayer partners. Okay, so this is a simple group of prayer partners. If I want to add people into my prayer partner group, I go to the far right where it says contacts to add, and I choose the contact that I want to add to my prayer partners. Once I've chosen that contact, I hit this button that says add selected, and now they're over here in my prayer partners. You'll notice that it didn't delete them from the right side. Instead, it turned it gray and italicized it. Okay, so that's how you know if the partner's already over here. If you want to add more than one person at a time to your group, click on the person, one of the people that you want to add, hold down your controller command key, and then click the other people that you want to add as well. And then it's the same process. Click add selected, and they all moved over into my prayer group. That's all there is to it. You do the same thing to remove somebody from the group. So if I want to remove Donald and Daisy Duck, I would click on that contact and then click remove selected member, and it would take them back out. So that's all there is really to groups. Again, you can do lots and lots of things with groups. If you want to look up one of the groups, so you want to bring them over for a mail merge or something like that, you click on prayer. Some of these prayer partners. I want to send an email to all my prayer partners. And so I clicked on the prayer partner group, brought them up, and I'm going to use look up this group. And now those are my prayer partners. So now I can do the mass email or a mail merge or whatever I want to do with that group of people. That's how you do groups. Let me know if you have any more questions about groups. That's all I had to share about it. The last thing that I was going to share is about Google Maps.
We've got one real quick.
Yeah.
Is there an advantage to creating a group over using the lookup function?
I think the lookup function is more powerful. The reason for that is, say I create a group of prayer partners, and then in my contacts, I decide to move this person over to Partner Pray, because this person's a prayer partner. They have not automatically been added to this group. I actually have to go find that partner and move them over manually. With a lookup, on the other hand, if I do a lookup TNT phase, and I want to look up Partner Pray, okay, well, it's going to pull up anybody who has this field. So if I add 5 new people to my database and I change this to Partner Pray, I don't have to manually add them to the group. They're automatically part of that lookup because they fit the criteria. Okay, so the same thing with these fields over here. Okay, if once I move this to yes, I don't have to. It's just less work, in my opinion. So like if I go through and I'm changing all these newsletter things, I don't also have to change them in the group. Hold on, I want to say that. If I created a group about my newsletters, right, I create a group that has, these are the partners who I want to send out my paper newsletter to. Okay, so if I made a group like that, and then I went and changed this person is not automatically added to this group. I would actually have to go to this group and manually change it. But if I did a lookup for people who had this paper then it's going to do it. Then it's going to automatically look for anybody who fits the criteria. Does that make sense? Let me know if that's not clear. So one is people that you've manually created. One is who fits criteria. So to me, the criteria one is more powerful because you don't have to change it in 2 places. You just have to change it in one.
All right, I have got a whole bunch of questions here now. Can you have multiple TNT, hang on, they're scrolling on me now. Can you have multiple TNT phase assignments for a single contact?
No.
Okay, that was a quick answer.
Now, wait, before you go on though.
Okay.
So I'm suspecting that you're asking that because there's partner pray, partner financial, and maybe my financial partner is also a prayer partner, and I want them to be in both groups. The way to get around that is if you go over to this prayer partners and create a prayer team one, and then just do yes or no. Okay, because this is one of the fields that I can look up by. If I go look up by field, okay, and I switch this to prayer partners. There's our prayer team, okay? And then I've made my options yes or no, okay? And it'll pull up my prayer team.
And what you just did there will actually tie into the next couple of questions.
Okay.
And that is, can you be a partner financial and a partner prayer? And up there it said, add a filter to this or something like that. So you could do the financial and the prayer, right?
Yeah, if you wanted to know the people. So 2 answers to that question. What I just gave is the ultimate answer, right? So you can't have 2 TNT phases. So if you need somebody, if somebody's giving, TNT is going to make them a financial partner. Okay, so if you also want them to be in a prayer group, this is the best way to do that, is through these user types here. Again, just type yes, no, true, false, however you want to mark that, and then you can do a lookup for your prayer team. I recommend that over creating a group. I think this is easier in my mind. Okay. Maybe it's not to you. The second part of that question is if you wanted to have a lookup that had people who are financial partners and prayer partners, then you would do that double lookup that I showed you. Okay, so first you would go down to TNT phase, partner financial, say okay, and now I want to know which of these people are on my prayer team. That's when I would go do a lookup again, say by field, look for my prayer team. Okay, click yes, and then I would say look up within the current group. So I only want the prayer partners that are within my financial partners. Say okay. And I only have one. Okay, the place that when I go into this by field and I'm finding prayer team, the way that got named is because I typed it in here. So if I type in juice box, okay, I know that's silly, but it's just for illustration purposes, okay. I type in juice box and I go to look up by field, I'm now going to be able to find juice box as one of the options, okay. I can remember my alphabet. Okay, so now juice box is an option. So it's whatever you type there becomes a field. And then on the right side, okay, this value is whatever you put here. So if I put orange here, it would let me look up who I had in orange. So you can literally do whatever you want with this, but it's a way to quickly look up people.
Okay, so we got a couple more here. One is just wanting a confirmation that groups are static and lookup is dynamic.
Yes.
Okay. And then another question, can I link the user renamed to prayer team field to MailChimp? So if I set up a new contact in TNT and select them on the prayer team user field, will it assign them to the prayer list group in MailChimp?
No. No, they don't work together that seamlessly. But I think mostly because the programs are created by 2 different people. So the only things that happen when you sync is it moves the contact over to either way. Move contacts to MailChimp or to TNT. And at that point, you have to add them to the group, though. So if you have groups in MailChimp, you have to manually add them. The only other kind of information that is auto-synced is it auto-logs history. So if I send out a newsletter, TNT auto-logs that into this history here. Those are the only things that are automatic.
Okay, I think we're caught up with questions for right now.
Okay.
Until the next ones come in.
Yeah, if you have more questions, please keep asking. The only other thing that I had planned to cover today, which is probably good because we have 3 minutes left, is Google Maps. And so I'm going to switch over to my personal account for that because I have fake addresses in this one.
We've got one more MailChimp question.
Sure.
Would it also work to have 2 separate groups in MailChimp? This is from the same person, so tied to the previous question.
That's not enough information. What do you mean?
Oh, sorry, it was not from the same person. Rather than subgroups, would it also work to have 2 separate groups on MailChimp?
I think you mean 2 separate lists. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you have 2 separate lists, MailChimp will ask you which list you want to sync. And so you could do it that way. So if you were trying to do groups, you could pull up which ones you want it synced to what list. That would work.
Yeah. But remember, you don't really want to have multiple lists on MailChimp unless they are completely separate with no duplicates and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. If you have partners who are in both lists, then you really should be doing groups instead of lists. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why, because we do that in the MailChimp organized, but be careful with that. Okay, so this is my personal TNT account. So what I want to show you is this map icon in the bottom left. And it's going to be a link to Google. You might have to tell it, you might have to give it permissions. I'm not sure. I haven't done that in a while. But they might ask you for permissions first. And so I'm going to switch over to current group. So again, that's who's ever here on this left-hand side. But what it does is it maps them for you. And so a lot of people like to use this to set up their PD trips. And so if I scroll in on this, okay, it's now mapped all my partners in St. Louis. Okay, so people have, like I said, people generally use this for their PD trips. And you can also look up by status. And so remember the dots indicate to you whether or not the partner is up to date in their giving or not. So yellow, red, so maybe you're trying to plan a PD trip and you want to make sure you get everybody who's lapsed in their giving. So you can hit status and find out real quickly where those people are. Okay. So that's Google Maps. Notice this says 46 are not mappable. This isn't, I guess, obvious to everybody, is that if you don't have your contact's address in the address tab, let me close this one. If you don't have an address here, it's not going to be able to find it on Google Maps. Okay, so it's only mapping the people that you've given an addresses for. That's the reason I had to switch over to this account, is because this address is not real. And obviously all of the addresses in my other database aren't real. Okay, and so it won't map anything because the addresses aren't real. But those are all the things that I had planned to cover for today, which we're actually right at time. But feel free to ask questions. So if you have more questions, go ahead. But we've covered everything that I planned for today. Again, you'll receive a survey. Michelle, I don't know if you have the survey link ready or not. It'll either be in the chat now or I'll send it to you a little bit later today, along with the recording of this webinar and some FAQs. So we'll have some other resources and helps and things like that that are available, along with a link to the resource site. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. But again, if you have questions, let me know, and I'll stay around and answer any questions that you have.